Everyone, hello. I am Rhodehawk. You can call me Rhode, you can call me Hawk, you can call me Rhodey, whatever you prefer. As long as it's not horrible, I'm good with it. Welcome to part two of our Bulba Garden Bulbacast Johto 25th anniversary retrospective part two. If you were here last time, we had an absolutely fantastic cast, amazing call. Could have gone on for like 5 or 6 hours more. But today we're going to be honoring the Johto games. Even going to be touching a little bit on Heart Gold, Soul Silver today. And we have yet another amazing cast with Abi being our replacement producer for the day, as Caps is not able to be here. But if you want to in the chat, send any love, wish Cap well. Everything's good, just busy schedules. And if you would like to as well, please send some love for Abby in the chat so that we can, encourage this moment. That being said, we do have one person who was here last time, and I want to make sure to honor that and go first. So, Death, do you want to say hello?
Howdy, folks. I'm MAGNEDETH, former editor-in-chief Bulbapedia, and generally the old Pokemon guy. I started with Pokemon Blue back in, when did it come out? 98 or whatever. And I've been playing the series ever since. And now I'm here. We're talking about Johto, which I also got to experience pretty much the day it was released, and still love it. And let's talk about it.
Thank you, thank you. Fitzy, you've been here before. People might know who you are, but would you be willing to reintroduce yourself?
Yep. Hi, I'm Fitzy. I am part of Bulba Garden's social media team, and I show up on Bulbacast whenever I reasonably can because I like to get my opinions out there. I'm another part of the old guard of Pokemon fandom. I started with Pokemon Red, the superior option, back in 1998. And then when Gen 2 came out, I was Silver and then Crystal. Those were my Johto games.
Awesome, awesome. Tech, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I go by BulbaTech or Tech. Uh, Pretty much, I am in charge of anything relating to our systems administration, our IT stuff, bug fixing, coding. That's pretty much all handled by me. I've only been around Bulba Garden around going on 5 years now, but I have been in the wider community for much, much longer. Um, yeah, I'm not as big of a Pokemon fan as everybody else, but I still dabble from time to time. So I definitely am just happy to be here. So
Awesome. And then, Abby, I know you've been here before, but do you want to say hello at all?
Sure. Yeah, I am. Ooh, just me. Okay. Yeah. No, that is feeding back. That's cool. 1 second. Is that? Hopefully that's. Yeah, that is showing up on the stream end. Good. All right. So yeah, I'm Abby. I'm one of the Discord moderators for our Discord, and also occasionally streaming here on Twitch. Not as frequently recently as I would like, but I am here. And yeah, I'm taking over for Caps on the tech end, which is why I'm taking a second to get settled in. But yeah, if anything is weird with the stream, let me know and I will see what I can do. I think we should be good now, but
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. So we've got an exciting cast today. Now, because this is the part two retrospective, I know that there is a lot that we covered in the first chat. I'm going to give everybody a chance to rapid fire who was not here. But I also want to start with an icebreaker. As always, if you've been here before, our icebreakers are not nearly as bad as our outro questions are for our cast. But what I would love everybody to start with in our outro question is to answer, do you prefer Steelix or Scizor? And I'm actually going to start with Fitzy.
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think in terms of like aesthetics, like if Pokemon were real, I would rather have a Steelix. That being said, in terms of having one on my team, I have always gone with Caesar over Steelix. I think Caesar just has better options to make it a good member of a team, but I think Steelix is a cooler Pokemon overall.
So, how about you, Tech?
Oh man, it's not even close. Caesar all the way. I mean, it looks so much cooler. I mean, Felix is just a metal onyx. Caesar's got those like guillotine hands, or not guillotine, but like it looks really cool. It just takes the cake for me.
All right, how about you, Death?
You know, it's kind of funny you say it's just a Steel Onyx, but this is one of those things where I have to pull out the nostalgia card. When I saw Steelix for the first time, myself and my friends back in the day, it was like, oh my god, this is the coolest thing we've ever seen. Saying that though, as much as I do genuinely like Steelix a lot, I would still side with Caesar because I've actually used it more. I actually used it in competitive for a while, and when you get it right, it's just a beast. It's just a cool all-around Pokemon. Whereas Steelix is cool to look at.
How can you say it's just a Steel Onyx? Like that's a strike against it. It's a Steel Onyx. Like I remember when Brock's Onyx first showed up on the Pokemon anime, it was just such a good moment, and then adding on everything that it gets for being a Steelix, just aesthetically, there's no comparison for me. Sorry.
I
I'm
mean, for what
already
it's
getting
worth,
worked up.
no, for what
I
it's worth, just
respect it.
just to, just to add on to that is, I'm not saying you're wrong, but the problem is that at the end of the day, as a stats guy that I am, it's a giant steel snake that has 85 base attack. Like, come on.
Oh yeah. That's why I've never used one, but if they were real, I'd want to have one.
I
That's fair.
respect it.
I do also have to say I love both of them. Um, I'm kind of torn between everyone because there are so many great points being made. Um, I am gonna go back to nostalgia briefly. I am someone who is incredibly frustrated that Onyx itself is such just a flawed Pokemon when it is giant rock snake that is it should be overwhelming, it should be intimidating. I understand first game it's gonna, it's not gonna be perfect. And then you have giant metal snake, especially with Johto, where they made the Steelix that you face from Jasmine just absolute nightmare. And in the anime, they made it seem like the toughest thing in Johto, and then it's so weak. But that being said, I do want to check in. Tech, was there something you wanted to say? Because I think I might have interrupted you.
No, no, I think I pretty much said everything I was gonna say.
I do
Awesome.
actually want to add something really quick.
Oh, go
Uh,
ahead.
you mentioned Jasmine's Steelix. That's the thing, is that Jasmine Steelix meant that everybody saw Steelix. Caesar, you only saw it if you traded with a friend. I don't recall any NPC in Gen 2 ever using it. So it was always kind of like forbidden fruit for some people.
Another fair point. And I do feel like Steelix got a ton of love when they introduced Jasmine. I remember that moment where it like breaks Team Rocket's giant mech, which is one of the more impressive things that I saw. We can definitely keep going into this over and over. I do want to move us in to a quick rapid fire because we have a few people here who were not here last time. And Death, if you want to jump into this to remind people of some of your choices, you are happy to. Just let me know. But I'm going to go through really quickly, ask a few questions. I'm going to ask for short, sweet answers just to make things a little tougher on everyone, but make us a little bit more cohesive. So, that being said, I'm going to start with Tech. And we're going to try a new format out today where we have a little bit more cohesion. But Tech, really quickly, what is your favorite Johto town?
Rod.
Awesome. What's your favorite Johto track in the games?
Music-wise?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I would have to say the track that plays when you fight legendaries.
Awesome. And then, what's your favorite Johto starter?
Chikorita all the way.
Great all the way. All right, Fitzy, what is your favorite Johto town?
I never know how to pronounce it. Ekrutiak, the one with the towers.
Ekrutique.
Ekrutik. Thank you. That one.
Awesome.
With
Awesome, Fitzy. What's your favorite musical track from the Johto games?
honestly, I would not be able to tell you. Because uh, so Gen 2 came out when I was in high school, and I was at that age when Pokemon wasn't a cool thing to do. So I played Gen 2 mostly in bed late at night after I was supposed to have gone to bed with the sound off. So I never really
Ouch.
played. Yeah, I never really played Johto with the sound on, so I don't know if I have an answer for that one.
Okay, and what's your favorite Johto starter?
Oh, Cyndaquil, absolutely. I love that little fire rodent.
Awesome. Beth, do you want to remind us of any of yours?
Hit me real quick. We'll do this in like 30 seconds.
All right, favorite town?
Cyanwood.
Awesome. Favorite track?
National Park.
Awesome. Favorite starter?
Cyndaquil.
Awesome. Awesome, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Very impressive that you went through that so quickly, everyone. Now, the next. Sorry, Fitzy, were you going to say something?
Oh no, I was just chuckling because I did not go fast.
That's okay. So, I want to get into something because we did not get to talk about this much at all. And I feel like probably one of the most influential parts of Johto is Team Rocket. I know we briefly touched on things a little bit, but I have a couple quick questions for everyone. So, when a lot of people think Team Rocket, they think Giovanni. But to start, I'd love to. I know that we have had Death go last. I want to try changing it up each time. But, Death, does anyone compare to Giovanni in Team Rocket?
No, but that's okay. And I feel like you're gonna ask a question. I'm gonna answer it before you ask it. Is the fact that the Team Rockets of Gen 2 failed, in my opinion, strengthens the power of Giovanni. They worshipped him and they're like, yep, we're gonna bring him back, and they failed. You know, Giovanni knew this. That's why he gave it up. And I think some people kind of give Gen 2 Rockets some slack for their failed attempt, but I think that's actually kind of what makes them more interesting. Or I'm just like interesting. I don't say more interesting. It's what makes them interesting is they're a lot more grounded. They weren't trying to take over the world per se, but I actually really like the simplistic story of Gen 2 for that reason alone.
I also have to agree. There's something about I know that there's a lot of Team Rocket figures in Johto. We definitely get to see a lot more of who they are. But I also have to agree, like the idea that there is such a fanatic love for Giovanni within his own organization is kind of plays to his charisma, which I think we saw a lot more of in the anime for good reasons. That being said, um, Tech, I'd love to know, do you think that anyone compares to Giovanni?
No, and it's not even a question. And it's like you said, between what we saw in Gen 1 with him being the ultimate bad guy, Gen 2, literally, if I remember this correctly, the entire motive of Team Rocket was we got to bring back Giovanni, right? Like,
Correct.
isn't that why they took over the radio tower?
It is,
Yep.
yes.
Like, they literally were just like, no, we need to bring back our boss because we're nothing without him. And Now, granted, I'm a little biased also because I didn't play, past Gen 2, and I know there's been some interesting stories and villains there, but from what I know, I mean, I think Giovanni just made the best antagonist in terms of his presence and his impact.
Awesome. Fitzy, do you think that anyone in Team Rocket compares to Giovanni?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna have to agree with everyone else, if for no other reason than because there weren't really there wasn't a leader for Team Rocket in Gen 2. Everybody nowadays, if we go back and talk about the Johto games, we remember the admins, specifically Archer, who was the head admin, but he didn't exist in Gen 2. There were just Rocket admins, and they were all interchangeable. But I did want to comment on just the idea of Team Rocket without Giovanni. I actually thought that they were a lot more when you took away Giovanni as the figurehead and as the hate focus that he was in Gen 1, it felt like Team Rocket as a whole was a lot more intimidating. And maybe that was just me, but their evil seemed a lot more in your face in Gen 2. Like you saw the slowpokes in the slowpoke well. You got to meet the people in the radio tower long before the radio tower was taken over. So you had like a connection to the people that they were that they were abusing, as opposed to Sylph in Gen 1, where the first time you enter the building, Rocket has already taken it over, and you don't meet any Sylph employees. You just meet Rocket members when you go into Sylph Company. So I don't think there's anyone in the Johto Team Rocket that can measure up to Giovanni, but I think Team Rocket without Giovanni was still a really good and threatening evil team.
That is awesome. And Fitzy, I've got to thank you because you reminded me about something that I wanted to bring up in this. It's particularly about Team Rocket that I thought, as a kid, I thought that, people eating slowpoke tails has got to be like this great crime. It's very cruel, and obviously Team Rocket is, painted as nefarious for cutting off slowpoke tails. But a little bit of trivia. I don't know if everyone remembers this, especially if you didn't like the Alola games, but people in Alola just outright eat slowpoke tails. So, with a modern lens, and I'm actually going to start with you, Fitzy, do you feel like this is just a strange bit of lore, or do you feel like there is a bit of bias going against Team Rocket and Johto?
I think it was more. Now, obviously, when you talk about people eating Pokemon, that can turn into such an emotional topic of conversation. I know that that topic has led to big arguments in the Bulba Garden Discord. The way I always saw it was not that eating slowpoke tails was wrong. It was the way Team Rocket was doing it. Like they were being inhumane about the harvesting of slowpoke tails. Because I could be remembering this wrong, and someone who knows Bulbapedia better will probably correct me if I am wrong. But I think it's established somewhere that slowpokes can regenerate their tails like newts can. So it wasn't like that it was like this horribly cruel thing that they're eating meat. It was that they were abusing the slowpokes and taking the tails in an inhumane way. And that's why it was established in the later games that yeah, it's okay to eat as long as you're okay about it. Just like in the real world, there are people who are okay with eating meat, but are not okay with inhumane conditions like that their meat came from. So that's how
Awesome,
I always saw it.
awesome points. I am going to go to someone who has a lot of experience with Bulbagarden. Death, how do you feel about this topic?
I was actually thinking about that. I actually established in Gen 2. I could be wrong on this, but I believe it's Kurt himself when he's like, "Don't worry about the slowpokes; their tails will grow back." And yeah, later generations were like, oh yeah, it's totally cool. And I think there's a big disconnect there because, coming from somebody like me or Fitzy who grew up with, Tech as well, that grew up with Gen 2, hearing it late in later gens where it's just totally normal to eat slowpoke tails, it was almost kind of a whiplash because the newer generation of players, they wouldn't have had that memory if they didn't play those games. They're just going to think, oh, this is just a thing that is totally normal. So this what's the word? Uh, my brain's not working on it, but
Oxymoron?
The disconnect
Disney.
it's the series itself. Where it was, hey, this is a thing that we need to bring attention to, and later on, it's just another, item in your inventory.
Awesome. Tech, do you have any thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I'm kind of got me worried now that I'm going to start a war. But yeah, I I always thought it was kind of strange that Team Rocket was doing it, like because back then it was the idea was, oh, they're kidnapping them and they're just like hacking the tails off, right? No, I mean there's in in the real world, obviously we have things like docking the tails of like puppies or kittens, and in some cases it's done humanely. In some cases they literally just hack it off and keep going. I mean, this is getting a little you know but anyway, it really, you guys pretty much already touched on it. I mean, it's more about the conditions of how it's being done, because I mean, what what constitutes a Pokemon and what constitutes an animal? Because it seems like just everything is a Pokemon. And I mean, obviously people in that world eat meat, so I mean they've got to be eating something. But it really does come down more to like how they're handling the processing of it, as opposed to whether it's a problem.
And I think all of these points are completely valid. I mean, Pokemon has always had a very strong underlying theme of, and at least in my opinion, like ethical housing with Fortree City in the woods. There's been multiple references to honoring nature and honoring Pokemon and being eco-conscious. Um, that being said, there's a few other things I want to touch on about Giovanni. Obviously, Giovanni, if you don't know, has been appeared in other games, has appeared in different ways. His influence is kind of almost synonymous with Pokemon in a lot of ways because he is a character within the anime, within the games. He has such a prevalent influence on the games. But I'd love to know, do we feel like Giovanni's influence would not be the same if it was not for Johto? In
Was there
your
when
opinion on
they had
this as
made
well?
Pokemon the first movie, um, where he was actually a big thing in it. At least from what I remember, he was the big thing in the beginning of the movie. But it that helped play him up. He was in the anime. I watched that every morning before school. I still remember, and I I do think Gold and Silver, like it did help to build up his presence. But even without it, he still would have been a strong villain.
Love that answer. Death, I'm going to go to you. What do you think?
I think Tech made an interesting point there, bringing up the movie, because in thinking about it, as much as I am definitely more on the game side of things, I think that the anime and movies have done more to bolster Giovanni's presence than the games have, if I'm honest. Um, do I think Gen 2 would have seriously affected it? You know, maybe not seriously, but something I think Gen 2 did was it humanized him a little bit. Instead of just being this, big shadowy figure who is revealed at the end to be the, secretly the 8th gym leader. Spoiler alert, guys. What by having all these people kind of worship him and then realize that, nah, he was right, we can't do this. It kind of goes back to what I said before, is it did work for him in kind of a third person kind of way, if you will. But I don't know, I can't honestly say that Gen 2, in my opinion, really changed a whole lot about him in terms of his overall impact, if you will.
Love that answer as well. How about you, Fitzy?
I think Death's word choice is interesting because I don't think Gen 2 did a lot to affect Giovanni. But I think Johto did. Because I remember when I first played Gen 2, when Gold and Silver came out, and they took over the radio tower and they put out that broadcast for Giovanni. I remember thinking, like Team Rocket doesn't know that he's never coming back because Red convinced him to shut down on Team Rocket. Like he disbanded it because he saw a different way from Red, and so he's never coming back, and Team Rocket doesn't know that, and that's why you have to shut them down. And that's how I always thought of it. And then we had, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping the gun on later topics you had wanted to discuss, but they had that secret Giovanni fight in Heart Gold Soul Silver years later. And I feel like that was a real turning point for Giovanni because he was just he was just one of the bad guys for Pokemon. But then Heart Gold and Soul Silver, they added that scene that made it clear that even though he had left Team Rocket, he was still a bad guy. And that the only reason he didn't come back when he was called was because of time travel shenanigans. And it was only after that that it really felt like Giovanni, at least the game Giovanni, became that recurring villain that he ended up being. Like he was still shady even when he showed up at the World Tournament in Gen 5. He was the leader of Rainbow Rocket in Gen 7. So while I don't think Gen 2 had a big impact on how fans saw Giovanni, I think Johto games in Gen 4 had a big impact on how people saw Giovanni, on how he was represented.
And I think that is a completely great point as well. I do want to say shortly here we will give some of the chat an option on our Twitch chat. And if you're watching on YouTube and you have thoughts on these topics, please let us know. But I'd love to really quickly open this up to the audience a little bit. Please let us know about your thoughts on Giovanni. But I have one question for everyone here. Did you play? Well, everyone in the chat, did you play Heart Gold? John, is Heart Gold Silver? I have other questions about these games, but I think this is a great point because we have had the remakes, we've had rumors of Johto, and in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, we've fleshed out a lot. I could be wrong, but I believe that there was a very emotional, at least to me, kind of influence. I didn't know this when I was younger, but there's evidence that Silver is Giovanni's son. They're fleshed this out in a lot of other things. I love Pokemon Masters. They're very honest about it on there. That being said, at some point, Giovanni had a family. It's touched on in various games. Do we feel like a family humanized him even more, or do we feel like it made him even worse? And with secret cutscenes, I don't want to go into too much spoilers in case people have never seen them. Do you feel like the games Heart Gold and Soul Silver did a better job of humanizing him? I know you touched on that a little bit, Fitzy. But do you think or do you think they made him worse? Fitzy, I know you said some, but I'm going to go to you first just to kind of finish off your answer.
Um, I think I really wish they had done him differently in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Specifically, in response to your question, they dropped those big hints that Silver was Giovanni's son. That wasn't really, at least I don't remember it ever really being touched on in Gold and Silver. I don't remember it being a thing until later in terms of the games. So they like more or less confirmed that Giovanni was Silver's father in the same game where they made it very clear that he didn't care. And they never really it didn't become a thing in Giovanni's appearance in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and they didn't change anything about Silver that I remember. And I really wish if they were going to confirm that fan theory, I wish they had done more for Silver because, in the original game, Silver was just a jerk. He was just a jerk for no reason, and then he got a little better for no reason. And I wish that if they were going to touch on Silver's family, I wish they had added a little bit more to his characterization in that way.
I think that's fair. I think one of the great things I love about Pokemon Masters is they get to fill in a lot of details. Um, and I know that there's a lot going on today. There's a lot of topics, but I want to go to Death before we move on.
Your initial question of did it make him a better or worse person? I think the answer is both, actually. Um, and if anything, I would say there's so much untapped potential in Giovanni because, at one point, he apparently loved somebody and fostered a child. And Silver is old enough to know who he is. So there must be some kind of, connection there. But, uh, you know, we're looking at what could essentially be a deadbeat dad, which I don't think we can really look positively on that, but that also fits Giovanni perfectly. He seems like a kind of guy who is way more interested in power and success than, well, doing the right thing. So, in regards to the secret scenes, I think they added some really nice extra character to Giovanni. For those of you out there who haven't seen them, go check them out if you can. But the point that I really want to make is that with all of the references in Gen 2 to Silver and Giovanni, it's never explicitly stated, I don't believe. And even if it is, the fact that I can't immediately recall it kind of makes me think it must be hidden somewhere if it is. But the point I want to make is that this was a huge topic of conversation amongst, the kids at school, if you will. This is the sort of thing that your friends would speculate. And it was a huge topic on, Pokemon web forums back in the day until Heart Gold Soul Silver came out. I know that kind of, ended that conversation for sure. So that was something I just wanted to mention as kind of an aside because that was one of those things where word of mouth, but with there being so much evidence behind it, it generated a lot of really fun conversations back in the day.
If I
Absolutely.
can just jump in real quick, for me, I could be wrong, but I don't remember it becoming like even a fan theory until Generation 3 when Fire Red and Leaf Green had the little like trainer information things, and you learned that Giovanni has a redheaded son. And I remember that's when it became a thing.
I recall an NPC in Gen 2 mentioning it. I could be wrong. But I
Yeah.
recall it being referenced in some way.
Well, we're
I,
all
I
old and our
feel
memories are failing.
I feel like
True.
I have a memory of someone in Gen 2 mentioning it as well because I never played Heart Gold Soul Silver, and yet I knew about this theory.
And I do want to say thank you, Tech. I was going to ask you if you've ever played. I thought based on your comments you hadn't. Really quickly though, I want to just honor the chat for a moment. We've been going for a while. Abby, do we have any answers in the chat or anything notable that we should shout out and discuss?
I am not seeing anything on my end actually. So if you are watching and have have questions or answers to anything and want to throw them in there, are more than welcome to do so.
Awesome. Yeah, feel free. We will move on then. And so, since we have this quick breather, I'm actually going to throw, I think, a simpler question than theorizing. Might bring back some of that nostalgia. So, and I know, Death, you were interested in this one as well. So, Johto is notable for being connected to Kanto. And I know a lot of people to this day, when they first discovered that was awesome. It was a big moment. And I myself have been playing since Red and Blue. I developed a very quick addiction to Pokemon. Um, but that being said, we have had so many complex topics. I'd love to ask everyone what that realization was like for you. And I don't mean to put you on the spot constantly, Tech, but I think because you've played the games, like so few games, you have a very different mindset on some of these things. And I'd love to kind of, as someone who doesn't play a ton of the games, what was that like for you discovering Kanto was connected to Johto?
Okay, so back then, that was the coolest thing that my friends and I had ever seen. Like, you better believe the first. I don't remember who first discovered it, but when they came into school the next day, they were like, "You guys aren't going to believe this, bro! You can play red and blue in gold and silver. It's so cool!" It it blew our minds. It was fantastic. I still to this day think that was one of the coolest things that I've ever seen in Pokemon.
I have to agree. I I remember those early days of the playground Pokemon and stuff, some of my favorite memories. But Fitzy, I'm gonna go to you next.
Um, I don't know about realization, because we didn't really have anything to go off of. It just was, it was a sequel, and we got to go back and. But I will say that seeing how Kanto had evolved over the years was very cool, and I remember having some weird reactions, like Misty being really mean because you interrupted her date. Blue being a gym leader and being kind of like humble in a way that he hadn't been. But I remember the one thing that really struck me when you go back to Kanto was the only graveyard in the entire Pokemon world being replaced by a radio tower. That was like, what the heck? Um, that just really messed with my head when I first played Gold and Silver. And it stuck with me to the point that I'm still like bothered by it, talking about it right now. Like it was
Um,
just a weird choice, artistic choice.
Death, how about you?
Yeah.
I gotta agree with both of them in several ways. Specifically, Tech, the way he described how amazing it felt to experience Kanto. The best way I can describe it is it was literally the schoolyard rumor of, "Hey, did you can visit Kanto and do Pokemon games?" Like, no way, there's no way. And then you play the game and you cross that body of water. And as soon as you get on land, there's that NPC that walks up to you and says, "Hey, do you know what you just did? You just took your first steps in Kanto." And I was like, "Holy crap, this is amazing." And then to actually go to all these old towns, it just felt so incredible. I'm not kidding when I say that experience is one of my favorite video game memories of all time. That's how much I loved that moment. And uh, going back to what Fitzy said about the radio tower, I'm gonna be honest, that actually didn't even cross my mind until, I kid you not, like a few months ago. As in, like a few months ago from today, I was talking to somebody else about Johto, and I was thinking, they turned a graveyard into a radio tower. That's really messed up. But the the same experience but different situation of how different things were was when I heard that schoolyard rumor of, "Hey, Cinnabar Island blew up. It's gone." Like, that's ridiculous. They wouldn't do that. And there I surfed to it, and there was no more Cinnabar Island, and that just blew my mind that it actually went that far with the story. So Them including Kanto, a lot of people these days will kind of poke fun at it because it's a little bit cut down to size, but I don't care. It's still an astonishing thing they did that has influenced not just kids of my generation, but even people today to know that there was so much crammed into those games back then.
You just brought up the other one that bothered me because Santa Bar Island didn't blow up. The volcano erupted.
Right.
What
Yep.
volcano? It's flat. There's no
Yeah.
mountains. Sorry. You just reminded me how much that bothered me. Like, there was no volcano.
Yeah.
Underwater
Flat Island,
volcanoes.
gone.
Yeah, I feel like that was a nod to the anime more than anything else. Based on the fact, like, in the anime there is a point where I believe like they start activating the volcano in a battle, like Ash versus Blaine. Like, something happens and they have to freeze the volcano because it's starting to erupt, and if they don't freeze the volcano, I can't remember the scene perfectly. I then know, like, in their rematch they have the battle over like an active volcano. So I wonder if in Gen 2 they were doing a little bit of cross promotion. I also know that, like, a lot of people criticize Gen 1 and Gen 2 Pokemon for being kind of just flat towns a lot of the time. But that could be where it came from, because when I played Gen 2, after seeing that anime battle, I was like, "Oh, that's how it happened. There was a volcano somewhere." So, um, that being, does anyone else remember that for starters?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, the
Vaguely.
volcano in the anime. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Was that
Just wanted.
which fight was it where Blaine was like using, was it fire spin? The one where that has the Japanese character that made out
Fire
of fire?
Blast.
Fire Blast.
Fire Blast. There we go.
Yeah.
Is that the rematch? Is that the fight you're talking about?
It was
So I think
Magmar
in the
versus Charizard.
yeah, the one in the
Yeah.
volcano was with Rhydon, and Charizard
Yes.
doesn't obey Ash, so he has to use Pikachu. And that's when, weirdly enough, that's when I think they first introduce Lightning Rod as like a nod, because his plane's Rhydon can absorb electricity through its horn.
But that's also where we got the meme "aim for the horn."
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think what's really funny is in later seasons of the anime, like, actually attacking the horn works. It's anime logic in Pokemon's wild. Um, anyways, when I keep going on, I could keep talking about the weird stuff about that. But let me just awesome. So the next thing that I really wanted to talk about in this conversation is the idea that, Kanto and Johto are very much evolved. There's a lot of things that we can talk about the original Johto games, Crystal. There's just so many changes that happened between Johto and Heart Gold and Soul Silver. And I know for a lot of people, the big two remakes are Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, Heart Gold, Soul Silver. And this is going to be a meteor conversation topic, so I want to honor this. And I'm actually going to start with Death again on this one. Death, do you feel like Heart Gold and Soul Silver are the best Pokemon remakes?
Yes. They basically improved on just about everything over the originals, and they added features. I mean, I don't want to go as far as say they supplement the originals, because I do still find the originals to be fantastic games. And I'll also admit I actually prefer the chip tunes of the original over the new games. But other than that, they're more welcoming with more options, et cetera, et cetera. It's just they just knocked it out of the park with Heart Gold, Soul Silver, and the huge variety of support these games get from the community. I think really speaks volumes to how much other people love these games. Especially when you look at later remakes in which we got less and less features and less, dare I say, effort. We're not here to talk about Omega Ruby Sapphire, but I felt so disappointed by those games. I wrote an entire Bulba News article about how disappointed I was in those games. And I had plans to write one about how disappointed I was with Brilliant Diamond Shining a Pearl. But I never got around to it. And honestly, I don't know if I need to because it seems like the general fan base hates them. So Heart Gold Soul Silver, I think, are absolutely fantastic games. They're not perfect. They are not perfect games, but is anything perfect these days? So yeah, I absolutely love them. However, I'm gonna do Rhodes' job and send it over to Fitzy because I know Fitzy is dying to answer this question. I'm dying to hear what they have to say.
Well, yeah, no, I'm just going to I'm going to ask the question just to remind everyone, and I'm going to say that my answer is also yes. Are Heart Gold and Soul Silver the worst Pokemon remakes? Yes. um, I I I enjoyed them. I played them. They're Pokemon games. They're fun. But I don't think that they did what I want a video game remake to do. I think a video game remake should maintain the spirit of the original game and fix what's wrong with the original game. Um, quality of life improvements. That's what I'm looking for. I don't think that Heart Gold and Soul Silver did enough to improve the quality of life, especially with the leveling curve. They are still such a chore to play through in order to keep up with the levels that you need. Um, and I enjoyed the Pokeathlon, the sporting mini game, but that's about it. I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed Voltorb Flip. But the games themselves, it was a prettier gold and silver, but it was still just gold and silver for me. It didn't change enough. Um, and it also set unrealistic expectations going forward. They left, even though it was remakes of Gold and Silver, they left in the entire storyline from Crystal, which I hated to begin with because I hated that they put Suicune on a pedestal higher than the other two, especially because Entei was my favorite. Um, but they left that in, even though it wasn't a remake of Crystal. And then, that left open a door that, then when the Ruby and Sapphire remakes came out, people were upset that there was nothing from Emerald. When Diamond and Pearl remakes came out, people were mad that there was nothing from Platinum. It's like, that's not how it works. They're remakes of specific games. And so I think, yeah, as Magnedeth predicted, I have feelings about Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and they're not very positive feelings.
Opinion, you make some very valid points, but I do know I got a special ping. Abby, would you like to fill in on this conversation topic?
There we go. It's actually coming through on Twitch end. Yeah, I align more with Fitzy here. In that I think they're like fine. Like I actually played Heart Gold Soul Silver for the first time, I think just a year or two ago. I got a secondhand cartridge for a not crazy price, which I still don't really know how that happened, but and I like enjoyed my time with them, but this is something I've been meaning to go into with more at length at some point. But there's something about Gens 1 and 2 especially. It's a little bit with Gen 3, but I think by then even some of it's fallen off. And there's just a very different feeling to those first generations. And even though like Heart Gold Soul Silver is like the less clunky, the prettier, on the whole, probably the quote unquote better game. There's something about the originals that draw me back a lot more instantly. I think part of it is because Heart Gold Soul Silver do still share a lot of the issues as the originals, that I would rather have them in a package that overall I find slightly more endearing, for lack of a better term.
And I think that's completely valid. I mean, in my opinion, one of the greatest things about Pokemon is there is almost a game for everyone. We have so much variety, so much uniqueness. I remember Heart Gold, and I'm gonna parrot everyone here really quickly. So, Fitzy, I'm gonna start because you have a strong opinion on this. I will say, I love Gold and Silver. Completely valid that Heart Gold and Gold and Silver, all of them, are really hard to get through. For like the first decade I played the games, I always hacked in a code because I got sick of grinding in the original games. And the last time I played Heart Gold Soul Silver, I got to the Elite Four and stopped playing for a few months because I had to do so much grinding, and then I still lost to the Elite Four. So I was like, okay, I can't grind anymore. I know it's not the most popular opinion, but I actually love the fact that the XP share has given us an option to not have to spend 70 hours grinding up Pokemon, especially if you change out your team. Um, that being said, I'm going to go to Death and say absolutely. Much of what you've said, there is a lot of love in these games. There is a lot of changes, and many of them are fantastic. Abby, absolutely agree with you as well. There is so much that you and Fitzy said that, in my opinion, is so valid. That being said, we are going to be getting into some things, and I know, Fitzy, I know when I proposed this, I think you said that our last question was going to be your hottest take. Um, but I want to double check on that. What is your hottest Johto take, Fitzy?
I feel like a lot of Pokemon fans would say that that is my hottest take. Um, I definitely hold a lot of minority opinions when I'm talking about Pokemon with people online. And I know that my dislike of Heart Gold Soul Silver and, you know, my love for, just as an example, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, definitely puts me in the minority a lot. But putting that aside, hottest take, I might say, no, I got nothing else. Totodile is a bad guy Pokemon, I think is my hottest take. For some reason, I got it into my head because I picked Cyndaquil the first time I played Silver, and so Silver had Totodile and all the way up to Feraligatr, and somehow it just got stuck in my head that Feraligatr is a bad guy Pokemon. And so I've never actually played with a Feraligatr in my party because Feraligatr is a bad guy. And I know the Totodile line has a ton of fans. So let's go with that as my hot take.
Completely valid. I feel like it was definitely designed to match Silver, but Tech, do you have a hot take or your hottest take on Gold and Silver?
So it's kind of hard for me to judge what would be considered a hot take, but I mean, if anything, because I know I have at least heard some people complain about this, I loved the way that it had an internal clock that tracked time. I loved that. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's so terrible. You have to keep going on specific days and at specific times." Super cool as a kid. And I mean, maybe that's not very hot of a take, but me, I thought it was neat.
It's a little warm.
Death, what is your hottest Johto take?
I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, what takes do I have that are truly heinous? But I mean, I was like, maybe I think Johto is the best region, but I don't know if that's that hot of a take. A lot of people like Johto. Um, so if I had to narrow down, I honestly don't know off the top of my head. I say off the top of my head, I've genuinely, for the listeners at home, we got these questions like a week ago, and I've stewed on this one the most. I just don't know what I think is like my hottest take on Johto. So if I have to pick something, um, BulbaTech, you're a nice guy, and I genuinely appreciate everything you do for the site. I really, really do. I think you're a great addition to this stream and our site. But I think Chikorita is one of the worst Pokemon of all time. I absolutely hate everything about it.
Them's fighting words, friend.
I'm gonna share mine so I don't put everybody on the spot. I don't know how hot of a take this is, but I actually like every. So I should clarify. I love Croconaw. I love like the whole for alligator line, but out of all of the starters, it's one of my least favorite middle evolutions. Um, I like Bayleaf. I like Quilava. There's just something about Croconaw, I think is his name. I can't even remember fully right now.
Yeah, you're right.
It's been so long since I've played with that Pokemon. Which, by the way, we need more Johto starters in games. And that's not even a hot take. That's just the truth. Um, but he just feels so out of place to me, and I feel like they did such a good job designing the Johto starters that he's so weird to me. And I remember being a kid playing with him and like in the game and just being like, why is this? I know it's like a barbarian kind of thing or like a ruffian, just doesn't feel like it fits to me. Um that being said, we have just a little bit more time. I apologize to all the fans of Croconaw or whatever out there. But I
Can
want,
I just add real quick that
yeah,
like I also love the Totodile line, and I love for alligator. Uh, Crocodile is pretty weird looking. It's just, but I don't think it's like the worst. But it's definitely like, well, here's Crocodile. It exists.
Like they said, hey, we just have to make something that looks like it's in between these two.
yeah.
Yeah, and actually thinking about it, as Road was talking, I'm thinking about the other Johto starters. They all fit that same category. The middle evolution is just a bigger version of the small. They all fit perfectly in their evolution, dare I say. But Croconaw definitely feels like the one where they just didn't quite know how to nail it.
And I feel like they tried to go like, okay, cute little Totodile, like cute little gator creature. Let's get him to a point where he can match this big, intimidating creature. And in my opinion, it felt like they went with like a caveman Pokemon feel. And it just as that in his like his like whatever the word is, that like a wrestling garment on him, and it just feels weird to me. um Anyways, I could
So bad that
continue.
we're all bashing it.
Yeah, I don't want to keep doing that. I know there's people who like it out there. I don't want to make anyone feel bad, but yeah, I can't stand it. Anyways, so moving on, unless anybody has anything else to say really quickly.
I
The only
actually
thing,
will hop in.
Okay.
super quick, I got like one sentence to say, is that
Okay.
Croconaw, some of its other art in like the TCG makes it look so much better. That's all I'm gonna add.
I don't know. I think I have perhaps perhaps one of the hotter takes shared, and I think that all of the like babies and weird single stage Pokemon that only got evolutions later are good actually. I really like all these just just these weird single stage things that don't they just kind of exist. I don't know. They add a lot of like flavor to the world, and I think a way that's really interesting. Like not every Pokemon when it fully evolves needs to be this thing, or they don't need to evolve at all. Like you can just have a weird little ice weasel somewhere. Like that's totally okay and I think fun.
All right, thank you for that, Abby. Great point. I do want to say, moving into that, I want to make sure we have time for things. I do want to end these on a high note. I have two more questions for us, and I'll try to make these quick to honor cast and everyone in the chat. But we've talked about Pokemon a lot. There's a lot of other things we could talk about Johto, but we've talked about some of it in the past already. Um, Now, I think this will be one of our more fun questions, one of our lighthearted questions. Ho-Oh and Lugia have both been highlighted in the anime and in movies. If you don't know all the movies, you might not realize which ones. Um, but I also want to include like Fitzy. I said this last time. I love Entei, my personal favorite of the legendary beasts. But which Johto legendary do you feel has the most lasting impact? And I'm gonna start with Death this time.
That's a good question because honestly, I think none of them. uh, don't get me wrong. I like most of them, and I especially of the bunch, I like Lugia the most. I think it's got a great design, but I would argue, and maybe this is a hot take. None of them have the presence of a lot of other legendaries, and to be fair, that might not even be their fault. I feel like the Johto legendaries in general have not really gotten as much attention as they deserve. Giant asterisk on that, by the way. Yes, I know Entei got a movie. Lugia got a game. Uh, and Ho-Oh has been around, but and Suicune was also the storyline added in Crystal. Which, by the way, Fitzy, as an aside, while I don't agree with some of your opinions, I do respect all of them. Don't get me wrong. I actually do agree that Suicune did not deserve its random amount of attention. But anyway, um, also shout out to Raiko, which got like the Legend of Thunder, nothing else. Poor guy. Yeah, as far as like that lasting impression, I feel like the Johto legendaries as a whole just haven't really been given their fair share. Well, I guess except Celebi, but I hate Celebi, so you know, it's there's no subtext to that. I just think it's a bad Pokemon. But I just feel like none of the Johto starters have ever really been given the level of attention that that a legendary deserves.
So Fitzy, how about you?
Well, I would like to remind our former editor-in-chief of Bulbapedia that Celebi is a mythical, not a legendary.
Yeah. Back in my day,
Sorry,
they were all legendaries.
but I would disagree. I think there is a clear answer. I think there's two clear answers, and they are Ho-Oh and Lugia. And I think it depends on what side of the fandom you're in. For as an anime fan, I mean, Ho-Oh is just its connection with Ash is intense. And I remember when it showed up in the first episode, because I was one of those weird kids who was like a Pokemon fan before it even came out in America. I was like I had the names of every Pokemon memorized before the game even came out. I was so anticipating those games, and I was so ready for the first episode of the anime. And then at the end of the first episode of the anime, this big bird Pokemon flew by, and it was like, what the heck is that thing? And they made more, they talked about Ho-Oh and its connection to, Ash's journey. And, I've even heard weird things like Ho-Oh is a rebirth Pokemon, and that's why Ash never ages, because Ho-Oh just keeps him at age 10. Like weird stuff like that. On the game side, it was never a thing for me, but you know, there are the people who, Pokemon Coliseum and Pokemon XD, the the fans of those games, Shadow Lugia is a big thing, and people talk about those games a lot, the GameCube games. And so I think Ho-Oh and Lugia probably had the most lasting impact of all the Johto legendaries. And which one it is depends on whether you're a game fan or an anime fan.
Awesome. Very true. Tech, do you have any opinion on this as someone who did not play past Gold and Silver?
Well, yeah. Um, I'd have to say it's Lugia, and there's multiple layers to this, and I will give it to you guys. Ho-Oh was a big deal. It was in the first episode of the anime. To the point where we had never seen anything like that, and we're like, wait, this is a Pokemon that just exists. It's not in the game. That was really cool and mystical, but the problem was that there was nothing past it just showing up in Gold and Silver. Lugia, I find this very interesting because there's a lot of lore behind the guy that created it as well. It's actually really sad. I won't go too much into that, but the guy that created Lugia was like he considered this Pokemon like his magnum opus. Like he was very upset about the fact that I think he wanted Lugia to be female, and they had made it just genderless or something. And he was very disappointed with like some of the changes that they made to it, but he's kind of got that legacy that lived on because he actually passed away not long after he created it. And then, of course, Lugia got the movie, which my parents have famously said after they took me to it, they said, "We are never taking you to see another Pokemon movie again. That was the worst thing we've ever seen in our lives."
Well,
Um,
go
but
ahead.
yeah, and I mean, other than that, the legendary dogs were just kind of nothing. Yeah, I mean, Suicune got Crystal, but I mean, really, who cared that much about Suicune and Crystal? The movie that Entei was in, I barely even remember. It was so nothing. And then of course, poor Raikou got nothing. It literally, it's just yeah, he's just Thunderdog. Okay, that's it. That's all he is, and he got nothing else. So he got the short end of the stick, I will say. But yeah, definitely
Underdog.
Lugia, definitely Lugia for me.
And I'm gonna jump in just really quickly on this one. So I definitely feel like there have been a lot of great comments pointed out. I will say, based on our conversation, it made me think of this because I know not long after Crystal, we had Ruby and Sapphire, which famously had, um, Groudon, Kyogre on the screen. I know that they were moving towards Lugia and things. I do wonder, I don't have any confirmation of this, if they put such a spotlight on Suicune just because they considered it to be the one that may have appealed more to both boys and girls, especially with Chris being introduced in the game. That being said, I myself, I saw the Mystery of the Unknown movie, which was one of my favorite movies, and having Entei kind of just be this creature of mystery that was like born out of a young girl's mind. I feel like it's very much not something they would do in a modern Pokemon movie, but that really stuck with me. I also, I mean, personally, just on me, for me, seeing like the beast that could summon volcanoes and has kind of strangely through a lot of seasons gotten a lot of love in the anime and in movies and things. That was always really cool to me. um I will say, I actually think I just realized this might be something that I'm miscounting, but I do think that Raikou, Entei, and Suicune are also in the Mystery of like the Zoroark movie, where they have shiny versions of them. And sadly, I don't think Raikou does much in that either. So that's kind of sad on top of that. But I know, Death, you had messaged me in particular saying that you wanted to say something really quickly. So I'll give that to you.
Yeah, I actually have two really quick. Don't worry, they will be quick. The first is I believe it was Tech mentioned how Lugia was intended to be genderless. Yeah, I actually looked it up on Bulbapedia, and we actually have a whole section of it. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I just wanted to confirm that yes, Takeshi Shudo, who was the chief writer for several amazing episodes of the anime and the second movie, he is actually one that created Lugia, wanted it to be a maternal Pokemon, and initially be male and female at the same time, but then insisted it be more feminine. And he's not really happy with how it kind of came to be in the games. You can check that section out on Bulbapedia. It's in the trivia section. As far as the comment I wanted to say, it actually kind of correlates to that, which is the anime. We didn't really get to talk about the anime tonight, which I think kind of exemplifies my difference in opinion regarding legendaries compared to the rest of the people that talked. I was never super into the anime. I watched, don't get me wrong, watched the original series and I loved it as a kid. But once it got into Johto, it became very, very filler. And that's when I stopped watching. I don't remember, I never finished the Johto anime arc and I didn't really watch much of the anime after that. So a lot of people saying that they remember this, that thing from the anime, I don't relate to that, which might be why I don't have that kind of connection with some of the legendaries like the others do.
Completely valid. That being said, we are going to begin winding down. I want to re-emphasize that we have had an amazing conversation here. And my last question for you,
Final series of Ash's run when Go caught a Suicune. And the idea that a main character caught a legendary Pokemon and the fact that it was Suicune, I remember people going nuts about that, to the point that we had to give out warnings to people who were bad mouthing Go in the Pokemon Discord about how he didn't deserve a legendary. And just the fact that it was a Johto legendary that it happened with, I felt I should mention.
no, that's totally cool. So I wanted to go into this as we begin to wrap up. First thing I want to say to everyone in the chat, if there are any messages, we will try to highlight any of them towards the end. I know that we also port this over on YouTube, so if you are watching, please feel free to join in any comments on YouTube as well. But I want to end this on a really fun note, and I'm actually going to start because I think it is going to require some thinking on everyone's part. And my question is, we got Paldean Wooper, who is perhaps one of my all-time favorite Pokemon. We got Clodsire. We touched on this a little bit last time, but we have several new people here. And the question that I'm going to ask everyone and myself is if you could choose one Johto Pokemon to get a regional form, what would it be and what typing would you give it? And you know what? I'm actually going to go. It wasn't my initial thought. But I would personally, especially because Sneasler and Hisui and Sneasel are a thing, I'm going to go with Murkrow and a Paldean or Gen 10 form of Honchkrow. I have personally loved that line. I love the fact that it's such a gangster motif. So many evil teams have it now, kind of like how so many have had a version of Mightyena. Um, I think it's really cool. I'm honestly gonna go with a psychic poison type. And I could totally see this thing being like a spy Pokemon or even like a darker take on like a mob boss hitman. I know like Honchkrow is supposed to be the boss, Murkrow is like the the foot soldier, but I would love to see like a sleek kind of like even more mischievous psychic poison type that does things in the dark of night and kind of like leaves lasting poison on enemies. But I know Fitzy, you've had a lot of really awesome takes. I'm going to start with you.
Oh God. I don't know. I think the first thing that popped into my head when you said it, and I don't know how I would change it, but I would love Ledian to get a regional form that is good. Aesthetically, I love Lediba and Ledian. I think they're just I think they're great bug Pokemon designs, and I do like bug Pokemon, but they're just so useless. And I would love for Ledian to get a regional form that's like good in battle. And I don't even know like what I would do with it, but that's what I'd like to see. Sorry that I'm blanking so much on like the meat of the question,
No,
but
I love
yeah.
it. I could even see it be like a bug fighting type, and you could make it like a bug type with 6 arms that is a bruiser. How do you feel about that?
I could see that. Like bug fighting actually did pop into my head. I just couldn't think of a way to like make it happen. But yeah, I maybe a bug fighting Ledian, because bug
Also,
fighting has been done well with the Ultra Beasts.
Mhm.
So
Death, how about you?
So I'm hitting some writer's block, if you will, because looking over the Johto Pokemon, I see a lot of Pokemon that I think need a different kind of help. Ledian's actually a great example. I also think Ledian has a fantastic design. Being, I think it's based on Pulse Man, which is a previous Game Freak IP, and yet they made it one of the worst Pokemon of all time. And but I don't think it needs original form. I think it needs like a new evolution. I think it's so far behind. It needs a whole new evolution to get it there. And that's kind of the problem I run into. I like a lot of Johto Pokemon, but I also think that some of them they're just bad. I still like them, don't get me wrong. So I look at a lot of Pokemon and I think they need a new evolution rather than they just need more of what they have rather than something totally different. My first original answer was going to be Steelix of all things, because as much as I love Steelix, it just needs more power. But I still want it to be a steel ground type, so that's not really going to work. Kind of the same thing with Skarmory. I love Skarmory. It just needs more power, and I still want it to be steel flying. So, but I ultimately came to kind of an unusual result as I was looking through the list. Mantine. Mantine really needs some help, and I understand
I
why.
forgot that was a Johto Pokemon.
Exactly. It's so forgotten. I actually kind of like its simple design, and I think it's kind of unique being water flying, but at the same time, water flying is not doing it any favors whatsoever. So, if this thing could get an alternate form to keep the water typing, um, but just I don't even know, make it water fairy. I don't know, just something to spice it up. Give it just a little bit more to work with. Because as it is, it's just kind of a bland Pokemon. I like it, but it could use something else.
Completely fair. I think Johto is definitely one of those regions where they've tried to help, but it needs a lot of love. I know a lot of Kanto Pokemon need love. A lot of them have gotten a lot more love than Johto has. But I just want to check, Tech, do you have any opinion on this whatsoever?
I mean, yeah, but I don't imagine that my opinion really holds much water, because personally, as soon as you said if you would give another form to anything, I just thought, well, I'd just give another form to the Larvitar line. You know, Larvitar, Pupitar, Tyranitar.
I think
I
that's a great
don't
answer.
think I don't necessarily know that that's needed, because that was already one of the better catchable Pokemon you could get in Johto. Like, I remember I had one on my team, so
Well,
I don't know what I would do to it.
look at it this way: is Tyranitar is awesome, as we know, and it did get a Mega. Don't worry, Tech. We don't have to talk about Megas. You don't want me going off on a rant how much I hate Megas, but um, Tyranitar, as much as I love it, has that terrible 4 times weakness to fighting. So there's plenty of things we could do with Tyranitar um, to help it out. So I think it's a great answer, actually.
I do want to say Tyranitar did get a Paradox form um, in Gen 9, which I believe was lightning steel. One second, I got a electric steel.
Electric rock.
Yeah, it was electric rock. Yeah, it's an interesting one. My opinion, probably one of the future paradox forms that makes a little bit more sense with being based on kind of on Godzilla and things or being Godzilla like. That being said, I do want to go to Abby because you do have information you want to give us on this.
Yeah, so I actually do a lot of Bakemon design in my off time, so this is something that I think about quite a bit. The one that really stands out to me is I would love a ghost fairy lantern. Kind of a guiding forest spirit sort of thing with that light lure, I think would be very cool. And just
Like a will-o-wisp?
Yeah, kind of that sort of thing. Just imagining a big ghost fish flying around a forest with that light on its head would be extremely cool.
That would be cool, yeah.
Awesome. So we are almost done. With that being said, I do want to thank everyone for jumping on. I'm going to have everybody do a sign off shortly, but I am going to try to throw us a little bit of a curveball. Originally, I'm not going to lie, Death, I was going to ask you about Johto Mega Evolutions, but I'll leave that one off, not cause you any stress. And so, I know we have some mixed feelings, so I think this is going to be a hard question to answer. In Pokemon Legends ZA, to kind of tie it into an upcoming game, would the icebreaker would be, do you want a Feraligatr new form, or would you want a Meganium new form? Whatever it would be. And I'm actually going to start with Death. Please let us know who you are, where we can find you, and what your choice is.
So once again, I'm MAGNEDETH, former editor-in-chief Bulbapedia, and I still kind of help out when I can. You can find me here on Twitch. I stream Wednesday nights on my channel. Bulba nothing. MAGNEDETH, excuse me. Currently, I'm going through the new Pokemon Snap. I'm a little late to the party, but I should be finishing that up soon. And I've also been playing a lot of Persona and Xenoblade. As for the answer to this question, that's actually really hard because my initial reaction is, hey, I want more Feraligatr. I love Feraligatr. I think it could definitely use some help with a different form. But hey, you know what? If they can find some way to make me not hate Meganium, I mean, they'd be, I'd be impressed. So, I don't know if I can give it. Like the real answer I want to give is more Feraligatr, but the part of me that doesn't want to be a hater is saying, hey guys, if you give it a shot, give me a better Meganium because you're starting with nothing, in my opinion.
Fitzy, how about you?
All right. Well, just to remind you all, I'm Fitzy. I am part of the social media team, specifically the meta side of things, Facebook and Instagram. You can also find me lurking in the Bulba Garden Discord pretty much 24 hours a day. And if I would love to see more love for Meganium, because I think Meganium and the whole Chikorita line has wonderful designs, and it just sucks that they're not better in combat. And also, Feraligatr is a bad guy, as I said before.
Heck, would you like to sign out and let us know what your answer is, if I can't guess?
Sure. So, again, I go by either Tech or BulbaTech. Generally, if you ever run into any problems with the site, you may end up talking to me at some point. And of course, obviously, I have to say Feraligatr. No, of course not. It's obviously my boy Meganium. Uh, I I don't necessarily know what I would change about it. Um, I already very much like Meganium. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've got to go with the classic.
Awesome, awesome. As always, I am Rhodehawk. You can find me here as the host of the Bulbacast at this point in life. It's always so much fun to have so many wonderful people on. You can also find me on the YouTube channel where I post summons from Pokemon Masters EX. If you don't know what that is, it's also Scouts trying to get new trainers. Probably spending way more of my life on that game than I should, but I love it. I just want to say thank you to everyone. I'll make sure that Abby can also plug. And I just want to say one more time, thank you to everyone. Thank you to the chat. Thank you to everyone watching. Thank you on YouTube if you're watching the VOD. And right after Abby checks out, we can go.
All right, yeah, I'm Abby. I am you can find me on the Bulb Garden Discord, hanging out there. You can find me streaming on the Bulb Garden channel, and also hopefully more frequently in the future on my own personal Twitch channel, Shield Does Pixels. I think that's more or less everything. I If I have to pick between Meganium for Alligator, it's Meganium all the way. One of my all-time favorite starters. And yeah, I wish it was better.
At least some of us are cultured.
Oh, sorry, Hidek, go ahead.
No, I was just making a joke. Sorry.
It's okay. I'm actually going to choose for Alligator. If I could have my dream thing, it would be different by the time it got to Croconaw, so it didn't have to look like that. But I know Death did shout out a water dark for Alligator, which I feel would be really cool. I would also potentially love maybe like a water poison, something to kind of mess with the like sewers under France or something. Anyways, everyone, thank you, thank you. I hope you had a blast listening as we did talking. We can leave now and have a good night, all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See y'all later.